Welcome, Lucy. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much for having me here. And it's so nice to see so many great actors, lots and lots of familiar faces, lots of people I already know. Thank you very much, Sophia. Sophia, I know from, we met in the Galway Film Festival in person for the first time, which was
Yes, we
great.
did.
Which was great fun, and very grateful to be hosted by eTalenta, which is one of the platforms that I also use when I'm looking for actors. So it all feels great. I suppose I like this kind of sense. I think this is the largest Zoom I've been on since the pandemic. During the pandemic, I did a lot of very large Zooms because we did a lot of town halls to teach people how to do things. But I love the buzz of seeing so many actors together in a room, even though it's a virtual room. I really think that it's so nice for you guys to connect, see who's there, say hi to each other, the ones that you know each other. Everything, I think, as we prepare for 2025, it's about communication and community. And the more that you kind of actors connect with your own community, the better. It's something that has been missing as everybody's readjusting at the moment to the digital world, where whether it's nameless, faceless people that you don't know who the casting directors are because you're not in the room, you're doing self-tapes, you're sending them out, you don't know who's seeing them, or if it's like you don't know who is behind things. And I think that's one of the things that we really have to bring back for 2025. You have to know who people are, connect with other people, and communicate. So for me, my motto at the moment is community and communication. And
We love that.
And that's why I'm here to answer questions. I love answering questions. Just my disclaimer is that I like anything that I say is my own personal opinion. It's based on my life, my experience of the industry, the people I've met, the people I know. I don't believe that there are gurus. I specifically think that in our industry, nobody knows everything and very few people know anything. So it's very personal, like everything in our industry. So if I say, sometimes people ask me, how do you get in touch with casting directors? I can only tell you how to get in touch with me, and then my opinion on how it is for other casting directors. But casting directors aren't a group. We don't decide how we like things together. The way I like things is not the way some of my closest friends who are casting directors like things. And in the same way with actors, like I might think that you're the best actor in the world and somebody else doesn't like you. It doesn't matter. It's all about opinions. And so it's very much, just adapting to having your own self-confidence, if that makes sense. And don't get too hung up. If I say something and you disagree with it, that's totally fine. It doesn't mean that you're wrong and I'm right, or that I'm right and you're wrong. It's just opinions, okay? And so I just always like to say that before people ask me, because I'm not a guru. I just have a lot of opinions about a lot of things.
Well, fantastic. I'd say let's jump right in. So, for us to get to know you a little bit better, if we don't already, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what made you get into casting in the first place?
Casting, I mean, I think casting found me. I always say the difference, like in life, you have to know your why. I'm always asking actors, why are you an actor? Why are you an actor? So why am I a casting director? I'm a casting director. I'm a product of my time and a lot of different circumstances. I got into casting because I suddenly had a job. I was working in production and I met a casting director, Pep Armengol, and he needed somebody who spoke English. I lived in Spain and I helped him for one day. And I had to fly from Barcelona to Madrid to, basically translate in a meeting or interpret in a meeting. And I was like, this is a great job. And then he asked me to help him on another project after I'd finished my production job. Then I went back into production. And then he asked me to help because there's a co-production between Spain and the UK. And he wanted me to be a co-casting director with him. I was very lucky. Working with him was a privilege. We're still friends. We still work together on some projects. So I fell into casting. And it was only after a couple of years that I realized how much casting suited me. And it's a great job. Casting is great because I love reading. I hate being bored. I like weird people, and I meet a lot of weird people. I meet a lot of people who are very talented. I meet actors who can be a bit strange. I meet directors who can be a bit strange. I meet producers. They're all different. There's a lot of variety, and it gives me a chance to do lots and lots, live lots of different worlds and different universes. And I love that because it's very different. Like at the moment, I'm working for Juanma Bajueloa, who's one of Spain's top auteur directors. And I'm also working on a variety of studio projects. They're just different. And I love exploring different universes. So I think that's it. There's a much longer answer to that, but I don't have time for it today. Thank you.
Well, going back to what you were saying about community, I agree. I think that's one of the things that's really going to save us in these interesting times. So why don't you tell us about the Actors Home? You know, what is it and why did you create it? And
Oh, the Actors Home is a community for actors online. Quite a lot of the members are here today, which it's something I started a community for actors during the pandemic, called Get Inspired, which was on Facebook, and I loved having. I mean, lots of other people during the pandemic baked bread or they took up hobbies. I didn't. I set up an online community with Kristen Danny, a young film director in Spain, because I was bored at home. I didn't have a dog then and I don't have children. So it's another long story, but what I saw, that we had over 3,000 members on Facebook of the Get Inspired. We did lots of table reads. We did lots of online sessions like this. We did lots of helping people learn how to do self-taping. Like, it seems extraordinary now that people didn't know how to self-tape then, or even knew how to use Zoom. I really laugh when I look back at the first Zooms I was doing during the pandemic, because I was like this, sort of looking down or looking up, or in a corner, or bad lighting, all of this stuff. So that's what I did. And we had so many people from all over the world. We had people from, from Nigeria, from Australia, from Malaysia, from Europe, from Romania, from Slovenia, Slovakia, Germany, everywhere. And they came together and they really connected. And for me, it was beautiful. And then after the pandemic, I found 2021 very difficult because, I came out of it, trying to go back to work. We had a lot of restrictions in Spain. I found 2021 much more difficult than 2020. And then in 2022, 23, I thought, oh, that community, we're missing that. So I set it up. I didn't want to be on Facebook. I don't like being on social media platforms that much. I wanted it to be a very safe space, which is what it is now. And it's just somewhere that I get to answer questions. I have a lot of fun. We do lots of different things. We help support actors to have more fun in their career, but to feel connected. We do parties. I come from a background of working in nightclubs, which I did in my 20s. I love organizing parties and events. So this is a way to be able to do that again. We do events at Cannes, at the Berlinale. And the other main reason, and I was thinking about it the other day, is that as a casting director, I have to believe in everybody I put forward. So in a project, I might put 5 people forward for a role. I might put 10 people forward for a role. I might put 25 people forward for a role. And I have to genuinely believe in every single one of them, but only one person gets the role. So I'm basically making one person happy and disappointing everybody else. And for me, having the community like the Actors Home means I can make everybody happy. And I really like that in my karmic feeling. I feel like it's a way of giving back to the industry as well. And it's fun. And I think that it's very important for actors to have fun with your profession. I think it's very important that, like when I talked earlier about, your why, if you just take a moment to think about your why as an actor, why are you an actor? When did you decide to become an actor? And then honor that usually it's a vocation. Usually it began quite early. The desire, I don't mean the moment of working as an actor, but the desire to become an actor becomes as a child. And I think it's very important to remember and honor that child and make sure that you're having fun, because the industry is tough and it takes away some of the joy. And I think that when actors embrace the joy, they're better actors, they have more fun. And we try to do that with the Actors Home. We try to go back to communication and community and just enjoying the process and taking a little bit away from that, the the relentless grind of always trying to get another job, which is what it happens a lot of the time.
So let's talk about getting a job, but let's start with you getting the job. So, what is your process when you receive a new casting? And does your process change depending on what kind of project it is?
Yes. My process is different for every project. So when I get it, I mean, most people I think know about this, but it all starts like with everything in the film with the script. So you get the script, you read the script, the dossier, then you start making a breakdown. We break down the characters. Then we talk to the producers. Sometimes the leads might be already attached. Sometimes they know who they want. Sometimes you're going into a project that some of the people are part of the project, like the lead actor might be also the producer. Then you work out what the casting needs are. And the process starts with the script, starts with the characters, then you have to work out how much money they have. So are they going to be looking for big stars? Then sometimes you have this very frustrating thing where they want names to finance the project, but they don't have any money. So then you have this uncomfortable conversation where you're like, you're not really being realistic about the kind of project that you want to make. And then sometimes I feel mean because everybody's project is like their baby. So when you tell them that their dream is not possible, it's like telling them that their child is not going to ever, walk or something. That's kind of complicated. And then the process starts with making lists, going out. Sometimes we have a very hybrid way of doing things in my office because I have a very good casting associate, Mike Cater, who's been with me for many, many years, 7. And we tend to brainstorm a lot. So I'll think of names. I have a good memory, but I say very weird things. Like I might say, oh, that actor who we met once in the park, and then he had a dog, and Mike will go, oh yes, John Gonzalez, and writes down the name, and then we get him into casting. So we have this kind of very relaxed brainstorming. Then we'll put out breakdowns on the casting platforms. Depending on the project, we might use 1, 2, or 3. We also, in Spain, we don't use casting platforms as much as in other parts of the world. We don't have an official one in Spain. We're still working on one. We've been doing it for a long time. And we will send out to all the agents. We'll also choose people that I might say, oh, that person I met in the festival, they would be amazing for that. And then we track them down. So we use lots of different processes, basically. And then we get people to do self-tapes, or we call them in the room castings. Then after they've done that, we do a selection. Sometimes we're sending everybody through. Sometimes we make a very, very our short list. Then we do callbacks. Sometimes we have to do chemistry tests. And then we do the deal. For international projects, I do the deals sometimes with the agent. And in other projects, the line producer or the producer wants to do the deal. So that's the process. And then I just say goodbye, hope that the shoot goes well. And then the last part of my process is when I go to the wrap party, if they invite me, or the premiere. And then I just celebrate. And I usually just sit in the dark, feeling very proud of everybody who's been part of it.
That is wonderful. Well, we're going to start off with a couple of questions from the participants. We got a question from Ebony. Thank you, Ebony. By the way, if I do butcher your name, I'm very, very sorry. Do get in touch and let me know how to pronounce it properly another time. So, Ebony asks, what is your process for finding new talent?
My process for finding new talent, and I'm always finding new talent, is pretty much the same. It's like I start with the requirements for the role. And it's really important that so many actors forget that I never find a role for an actor. So I could meet any one of you, and think, oh, that's the best actor I've ever seen in my life. Like Frank Amak comes up on my screen, or I could think, or Stefan Corocci, I could think, oh my God, they look so interesting. They're so amazing. But if I don't have a role for them, I just think they look amazing. So it starts with the role. So for example, if I'm looking for new talent because they're young, I will go to drama schools. I watch short films the whole time. Agents tell me about talent. I meet people. I mean, I meet actors in every single way you can imagine. I'm going to do I think I'm going to do a sort of webinar for next year of how I met 26 actors, one for each letter of the alphabet. So I've met actors because somebody's recommended somebody to me. So it could be Sophia at the festival. And we met in Galway. She introduced me to an actor. I'd be like, oh, that's interesting. And she told me that that's a great person. I meet actors because I've seen them in films. I meet actors because I've seen them in the theatre. I meet actors because agents say, I've just signed a new actor. Have a look at their material. I also meet actors when they write to me. Sometimes they'll send me their material. A lot of the times and I do speak for all casting directors now, don't have the time to look at every or answer every email, but I've kind of got a database and a new email will come in and I'll look at that person. I think, oh, they look interesting. So I think there's lots and lots of ways. And then if I'm looking for a specific kind of actor, then I have then I go out I ask agents, I ask people, like when we were casting the Guy Ritchie film, and I needed Afghanistan actors, I went everywhere. I was in touch with the former head of Afghan film because he's now living in Paris because there's no film in Afghanistan now. And then he introduced me to somebody, and then they introduced me to somebody else. So, you know, I would leave no stone unturned until I'd found everybody that I wanted to find. Does that answer the question, Sophia?
Yes, I think so. A question from Fabio. Who has the final word on the casting of actors for roles? The director, the producer, the casting director?
It just depends on the project, but never, as far as I know, the casting director.
That's been my experience too.
We just put people forward. I think sometimes the casting director has more influence when they're working in a studio and they're the in-house casting director of the studio in America. So they have things, but normally the final word is had in independent film, it's had by the director. In very big budget studio stuff, it's had by the studio executives. They have the final word. And then everything in between that. You know, in platforms like Netflix, the casting department has the final word rather than the showrunner. And then sometimes it's, you know, backwards and forwards, but definitely not the casting director in my experience.
Well, Leah Martina asks, what has been your biggest heart project until now? It might be a tough one to answer.
It is a tough one. There's so many, and it's a bit like I fall in love with every single project when I'm doing it, and you have to. So it'd be like, that would be like, you know, I think there's been so many good moments, and I'm so proud of all of the jobs that I've worked on. Some of the ones that are the most difficult and have been the least enjoyable are the ones I'm most proud of. And some of the ones that have been very, very easy, maybe I don't like the end product so much, but no, I don't really have a heart project. I, I always say when people ask me this question, it's going to be the next one because I'm just looking forward to the next project I'm going to work on. Or the one actually, no, it's the one I'm working on at the moment. But I really like every day and every challenge. So there's no heart project, I don't
Well,
think.
this leads in very nicely to the next question that came from Joe. What is the day-to-day life like as a top casting director? Fun, frustrating, or fantastic?
Every day is different, but it's mainly, I always think on a Monday morning, I like going to work. You know, I mean, I like doing this. I like talking to people. I like my job. I'm very happy, but I don't know whether that's just my personality because I like everything that I've done in my life. I've done lots and lots of other jobs as well. So I'm a yes person. I'm very enthusiastic about things. So I like it. But I think as a casting director, it suits me because I can get up in the morning and if I'm feeling like not seeing people, I can read because I've always got scripts to read, or I can look at other things. Yeah, no, I think being a casting director, it's interesting, it's fun. Sometimes it's frustrating in the sense that, no, the only time it's frustrating is when I have to go to meetings with producers and they want big names and they don't have big budgets. That I find frustrating because it's like, just be creative, guys, you know, and then but apart from that, but that's a very minor frustration. I think basically I'm very privileged and very lucky to have my job.
Okay, a question from Carmen. How do you ensure diversity and inclusion in your casting decisions? And can you provide an example of a project where this was particularly impactful?
Okay, I, as probably anybody knows me, I'm very keen on supporting inclusion and diversity. I don't like the words inclusion and diversity because I think that we're all diverse and we should include everybody. And I think about it as representation because the world is, you just have to walk down the street. The world is full of every different kind of person, every different ethnicity. Um, and that is, so instead of calling it I like to think of it as representation more than inclusion and diversity, but it's very difficult. But what we mean by that is having representation on screen, which I think is very, very important. I think our industry has done a lot of damage to representation or inclusion and diversity by telling stories. I say this example a lot, when you look at America, the United States of America, which became the focus of the film industry because of the wars that we were having in Europe. We had a much better, stronger film industry in Europe in the 20s. Then we had two world wars. Hollywood developed. Hollywood's fine, but it is telling their story. And Hollywood is set up by 5 families. So it's basically a narrative which is very much based on the ethnicity of those 5 families. Cowboy films, and I mean, I've got a degree in history and I did a thesis on this, so bear with me for a moment. The cowboy films always have white American looking kind of like of Irish extraction playing the leads. The reality in the West, which is the documented reality, was that 30% of cowboys were Black or Chinese. They're not shown on screen. Women had a much stronger, women weren't just working in brothels or married to the preacher. Women were businessmen. There were also women who rode stagecoaches. Women were also studying to be doctors. There's a really famous medical school in the 1858 where women traveled from all over the world to become doctors in America, where women who had been slaves, so they were freed slaves, were working 1 year on the cotton field to pay for 1 year of medical school and then go back 1 year on the cotton field, 1 year in medical school, and graduated as doctors. But because these stories aren't told, white Americans think that they built America, and Black and Chinese Americans and women feel slightly disenfranchised. So I blame our industry directly for things like all the people who are voting for Trump. Sorry, that's a little bit political, but I'm not pro-Trump, just so you know. And I think it's very important for us to realize that it's very important that we show representation on screen. And representation is so that if a child sees themselves, I'm talking about not just ethnicity, or also about gender, sexuality. Like our world is so much richer by people who are different. I mean, it's one of the reasons I like actors. I like people who are different. I like people who are brave. I don't just want to look in a mirror and look at myself. I want this. And I've talked to so many people, and for my generation, for example, I'm from Ireland. I'm from rural Ireland. Being gay in my country was very difficult in the 1970s and 1980s. When you grew up, people were bullied and they didn't see a lot of representation on screen. Now they do. So if you're gay in Ireland, you don't feel as miserable and bullied as you did when you were in the 1970s. Or, you want people to see things, if you could see it, you can be it. So I think that that's important. I'm going a little bit off on the question. So going back to the question, what do I do? What I do is I question sometimes in the scripts. It's the only scripts that I've said no to are scripts where, for example, the Arab population has been portrayed very negatively, because that's something that's very close to me and my family, for who I was married to. Sometimes I make suggestions. I'm also try to make sure that people who haven't had access to drama training or information, that we're kinder and help them a little bit more with auditions. And then quite a lot of just suggestions behind it. Now it's easier. I do a lot of TV. TV has to be inclusive and diverse. So it's very easy for me now. So all I do is try to be supportive to all actors on their journey and then to make sure that I feel like we're discussing it in the casting room. And if somebody has not had access to drama school training, that we just help them a little bit more during the audition process.
Fantastic. Okay, I would say let's go into the first block of questions with a specific theme, and the specific theme are self-tapes. Melody asks, when you look at the taped auditions sent to you, what is the biggest mistake actors make, whether that be technical or otherwise?
Okay, so first of all, don't worry about the technical side. The technical side, it's really easy. Just Google it, look it up, find it out. All we need to be able to do is see you, hear you, and that's fine. And then some casting offices have more technical requirements. Just read the instructions and be careful with the sound and check them. Biggest technical problem I've ever seen is when somebody edited in their intimate moment with their girlfriend into the middle of the tape. So don't
Oh
do that.
no.
That's a bad thing to do. We don't need to see that. But, it didn't lose them the role necessarily because we sort of in my office and got rid of it. So that would be a technical problem. And then so that's the biggest mistake I've seen. And then in terms of a general mistake, it's just when people are more obsessed about the technical side than the character. Like a lot of the times actors will come to me and said, I've done a great self-tape. And I said, oh, great. What was good about it? I said, oh, the background was perfect. The sound was good. And the lighting was amazing. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not your job. That is not a good self-tape. A good self-tape is when you were in the character. So I think the biggest mistake is being more interested or obsessed with the production than with actually getting into character. And another mistake is when people are trying to show me that they can act in a self-tape. I know you can act. That's why I asked you to do the self-tape. I just want to see what your artistic proposal for the character is. And then the other thing I would say, and this is for most of the actors on this who are very professional actors already, is that you're going to get a lot of self-tapes. Remember that every time you do it, you're doing the best that you can do. Look at what you've done, work out what you like about your own work. Because when I ask you to do another self-tape, it's because I think you're great. Because a lot of people I'm seeing at the moment, they've got like 5 or 6 tapes that they haven't got the role. And then they come to me and say, what am I doing wrong? Why am I not booking the job? I'm like, no, you're doing everything right. It's just that only one person can get the job and you can't, it's not a competition. We don't give the roles to the person who does the best job. We just give the role to the person who fits into that puzzle. And you can't make yourself fit into the puzzle other than when you've done the best that you can do. You have to know that you've done your job. This is your proposal, but it's based on how you look, what your vibe is, what your essence is, who everybody else is in the picture. Like sometimes you could be amazing, but you look like the lead. And then we can't have 2 people who look similar. Or sometimes you don't look like the lead and everybody has to look like the lead or whatever it is, but there's stuff that you can't control. So when you don't get the job, you should know what a good job that you have done. You should know when you're doing your good work, and then just move on. It wasn't for you. And I know that's really, really difficult. But don't then, I see lots of actors now because they've done 10 self-tapes and they haven't got one. And they think that they're doing something wrong. So they start fiddling with it. Like, I'm going to do a different accent or I'm going to try something new. Remember, in the same way that for me, every project is new, for you guys as well, every project is new. The same people are not going to be seeing you. It's a different director. It's a different process. It's a different character. Remember to go back. I think the greatest secret of being an actor is that you have to know how to go back to first position every single time. And remember to do that in castings as well.
That's fantastic. It's the next question is from Helena. Thank you, Helena. When doing a self-tape, do casting directors and directors want to see the role, meaning more effort put into costume, hair, etc., or do they just want to see the actor interpret the character? Would you encourage them to use props and so on?
Not really. And this is the biggest difference between commercials and fiction. Like in commercials, they always want to see the role. It's really weird. I mean, they're all called the creative team and they're extremely non-creative. Like in my office, I have to have white coats because they can't imagine that an actor would look like a doctor unless he's wearing a white coat. That's commercials. So in commercials, I would go the little bit extra. In fiction, you want to look like you were born to play the role, so you don't want to make too much of an effort. It's a very weird thing. You shouldn't have props if they distract from the acting. In fiction, what we want to see is here, just your eyes. We want to see that it's going on there. But be clever. Like if you're going for a role as a businessman, don't wear a sleeveless t-shirt. If you're going for, try to be in some world in the universe, but without going over the top. If you're playing the beautiful romantic lead, don't turn up with greasy hair. If you're, just if you're going to play the Viking, don't be so clean shaven that you look like you've just, come out of a bath. Be a little bit in the world, but make sure that it's more of the work is internal. So in commercials, it can be more external, and in fiction, which was what we call TV and television, the work should be internal so that your eyes shine, if that makes sense. And then the same thing again, remember that every world is slightly different, and ask the casting director because they should know, or I should know a little bit more about the universe that we're in, because directors react differently to different things as well.
Yeah. An interesting question from Lucy, Lucy with a Y. Thank you, Lucy with a Y. With more and more being asked of actors during the self-taping phase, where can you draw the line and question the process without the fear that your audition won't be used or that you will not be included in the selection process? I think things like, I'm assuming it's something along the lines of sending in a self-tape the day after and they've asked you to learn 5 monologues off by heart and things like that.
Hang on, I haven't really understood the questions. Can you go again?
Sure. With more and more being asked of actors during self-taping, where can you draw the line and question the process without fear that your audition won't be used or that you won't be included?
It's really difficult. Like, it's really tough because people are asking all the time, like, I don't know the answer to that question particularly. That's why I didn't really understand it, because if somebody is asking you for something, like in my office, we have a hashtag which says in Spanish, sí a todo, which is yes to everything. Because sometimes it's when producers ask us to do ridiculous things and we have a conversation in my office about, should we do this, shouldn't we do that? And then at the end of the day, I quite often say, okay, we're going to go the extra mile and just say yes to everything. It's really tough, but this is not a fair industry. We're advocating, I don't think we should be torturing actors in the way of making them learn 10 pages. I think that's where the actors' unions come in. But when you've been asked to do something, you have to remember that the person who's asking, like if it's a casting director asking to do something, it's because a director or producer has asked them to do that. It's not always very considerate. You have to just do the best that you can do. For example, and it's highly personal because I'm going to answer this as an individual rather than as a representative of the industry. So if I was answering it as a representative of the industry, I would say it should be fair. You can say what you want. And then as an individual, I just say, if you can do it, do it. Because if somebody's asked you to do it, they think it's possible. You can always have a conversation. You can always say, like in my case, if somebody says, hey, I don't have time because I'm doing theatre, because I'm doing this, or because I have a personal issue, or because I have a child, or whatever reason, I'll say, okay, why don't you just learn a little bit, and then we'll show it to the director that you're really good. And we can have discussions about it. It's like going back to what I said at the beginning, it is about communication in a nice way. And then, we have to be human beings in this industry. But on the other hand, if it's something that is actually feasible and possible, just do it. Like get up earlier, stay up later. That would be my advice as well. And it's complicated. I don't know. And it's something I talk about with lots of other people. It's like sometimes it is unfair, this industry. And there is also this generational change. And I think things are changing. Like, I often think about when I started working in the industry, I worked so hard Like sometimes it would be 24 hours. And I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. It was just seen as much more normal. I mean, I can remember on a call sheet looking, and my official time on the call sheet was starting at 9, and official time ending was 9 the next day. That would never happen nowadays because it's illegal. But then my generation, my sense of gratitude for work or the possibility for work was very high. And now I find that with other people, it's just different. So I find that question quite difficult to answer. So I think it's sometimes you just have to trust your gut instinct, but also depending on the project, because auteur film directors have worked so hard to get their films made that they don't really understand that people aren't prepared to kind of basically bleed to be in their films. And that's complicated. So I think it's complicated.
The next question about self-taping comes from Sodad. Thank you very much. How much should an actor improvise when getting a script that doesn't explain the feeling or moods in a scene?
I think that you should ask for more information then, because you should know what universe you're taping for. I don't think they should improvise on the text, particularly not for the kind of projects I work on, where there's writers' rooms. Like when you're doing big international projects, every word has been approved. So I would improvise on that. And then if it's an independent film, some directors like it, some don't. So you can ask. But in general, I would ask, and this is going back, I believe that the industry should give you more information. So go back, ask for the information, and so that you know where you're going. And if they don't give it to you, just trust your own gut instinct to make the role you rather than trying to make you the role.
We should put that on a t-shirt, Lucy. That's really good. Okay, a question about in-person auditions. Any tips for what not to do going into an in-person audition? This one is from Carolina. Thank you, Carolina.
Read the room. Like going into an in-person audition is, first of all, spend 10 minutes before you head off for your day remembering what you like about you as an actor. Like, don't expect people to like you more than you like yourself. So try to really work on your own self-confidence, like thinking about, like, so often I see actors coming in and they look like they don't believe in themselves. So how are they expecting me to believe in them if they don't believe in themselves? So spend a few minutes just remembering why you're an actor and what's great about you as an actor, because every single one of you has something that's great about you, so that you go in for thing. And then when you go into a room, just read the room, because some people like, I mean, one of the things is, for example, I'm Irish. I don't particularly like being kissed on the cheek, but I live in Spain and everybody wants to kiss everybody on the cheek the whole time here. But just, you should be able to tell from somebody's body language. Like Americans like bumping elbows, which I find very strange. But read the room. So don't try to impose yourself on the room. Then remember that you're there because somebody likes you or everybody likes you. So just go in with the self-confidence that you're there. Don't make excuses, like, and don't apologize. Like if you've been late, doesn't matter, because normally my assistants will have covered up in some way. So just go in, you're there to do the job, you're there to be interesting and enjoy it. And remember, you're there because you love doing it, you love acting. So try to go in as somebody with a creative solution to a problem, which is the role, rather than somebody who's going in as a job seeker.
I would also add, don't flirt with the assistant. That happened to me while working in Rome as a casting director's assistant. Don't do that because you will be remembered most likely for the wrong reasons.
Yes,
Well,
exactly.
Lucy says, oh, maybe do flirt. No. Okay. Going on to profiles, actors' profiles. When you are looking for actors, is it helpful if the actors or actresses' headshots are close to the role? For example, should we have a period look in one of our headshots if we want to be cast in a role in a period drama?
No, I mean, I think that I should be capable of seeing what you could be like. I think, I mean, I was talking about it a lot. Just look like yourself. And that is enough. But look like yourself, really look like yourself, and don't catfish the industry. And then some people have really good period faces, some people don't. But it doesn't, I mean, just because you've dressed up as, an 18th century princess doesn't mean that I will see you that. If you've done it, like I think having on-set pictures, like particularly on your IMDb profile, helps. But otherwise, your headshot should just be you. And then, because also in period dramas, like I've done all kinds of period dramas. Some of them want people with no teeth, and some of them want people, Americans want period drama, but you have to have perfect teeth, even though you're doing a period drama. So you can't really control it that much. I think just looking like you that would be my personal preference.
Okay, going on to general casting questions. A question from Giovanna. Thank you, Giovanna. Would you cast an actor who doesn't have an agent?
Yes, I do all the time.
Fantastic. The next question is sort of similar from Ejona. Apologies if I butcher your name. Would you audition someone who doesn't have any credits or who has had a major gap in their career?
Yes, 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 all the time. Because that everybody has to start somewhere. I'm really happy. And also, I love discovering new talent, as do most casting directors. But what you won't do is you're not going to audition somebody to play a lead role who's never done anything. But actually, you might. That's completely because remember that you can win an Oscar as a 7-year-old. It just depends. You just have to be right for the role, and it depends what the role is. But of course, I love seeing new talent, and I'm really very excited about. Like, there's a lot of people who are really, really famous now, and they did their first auditions with me like 20 years ago, and I just keep them in a file because I'm thinking, ooh, then I'll be able to say I was the first person they saw. And I try to be as nice as possible to make people's first casting the least traumatic possible. But it's yes. And then people who come back into the industry, welcome back. It's great. I mean, I cast somebody who was in their 80s, and it was their first role ever. They'd been a musician and then they suddenly decided to act, or it was somebody wanted them to be in a commercial, and then they were amazing in the commercial, and then I cast them in a film. Like, there is no this is not a career that you go from A to B to C to D. You can start at Z, end up at F, and do a lot of H, J, and K in the middle. But it doesn't matter. It's just, you have to just be right for the specific role at that time.
Absolutely. A question we got various times, so I've put about 3 or 4 questions into one. What are the do's and don'ts of unknown actors trying to get on the radar of casting directors, and at what frequency do you like to be updated?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and everybody asks it. It's like you just have to work out with each casting director their way, because it doesn't matter if you're on their radar or not if they don't have a role that's right for you. So with each casting director, it depends whether you have an agent. Some of them, it's like you follow them on social media, see if they react, see if they're looking for people like you. Like, for example, I'm a really good example of, I'm based in Spain. I cast a lot, but I'm always really interested in meeting English speaking talent in Spain, because that's my thing. So if somebody moves to Spain, they send me an email, that's fine. Or, if I know somebody, they just stay on my radar. But then there are people who are doing, big TV shows who need a lot of talent. But it's just finding out your own rhythm. But one of the things I say a lot to actors is, remember, it's not just casting directors. It's know which directors you want to work with, know which universes, know who's doing the TV, know who the young directors are, know who your network is, and know other actors. Like, networking is not just getting onto casting directors' radar, it's getting into the industry. And the industry is made up of creatives, actors. Like, your strongest network will be other actors, because if an actor's doing a project and they need somebody who likes, and they can say, oh yeah, no, Veronica would be great, or Katarina, or, oh, what about Tanya? This is what you have to work on. It's working on that your name is spoken about in lots and lots of different rooms that your feet haven't been into. And that you get an agent who works for you and puts you forward for the roles that you're right for. But when you're put forward, it might be, if somebody's on my radar and then their agent puts them forward, I'll think, oh, that was that really interesting person who I saw in a workshop, or I saw them, oh, that's Florin. Oh, I saw him. He looked great. Or, oh, I've worked with him already. It's like, this is a very long-term career. It's not just a one shot sending an email to a casting director. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I think that's great. By the way, Etalenta has the casting letter and it gets sent out on the second Wednesday of every month. So you can also put your news in there, whether that's new headshots that you're represented by a new agency, and it goes out to all of our casting directors, casting professionals, directors, and producers. So do keep that in mind. We can also tell you more about that if you're interested at another time. Miriam asked a great question. How do I find my type? And do I have to be a special type? I really thought this question was brilliant.
Yeah, I don't believe in types. Some casting directors do, and in America they do for and in commercials there are types. I don't really believe in types. I believe in essence. The way you find your essence is you do a lot of self-discovery. It's like, what's your essence? What's your vibration? What's your energy? I recommend doing, if you haven't done it already, Briggs-Meyer personality test, and then it will just help you to define it. And then it's thinking, what do I look like? What's my age? Where am I? What kind of roles do I see myself in? But it's not so much a type as more as just knowing yourself. And that's something, it's like, am I what? I mean, it's interesting because types are so different. I laugh about it a lot because when I was little and I grew up in Ireland doing theatre, I'm not an actor, by the way, and I've never been a professional actor, but I acted up until I finished university and I was in many things. So when I was in Ireland as a little girl, I look like the typical Irish princess. So I played Little Red Riding Hood, Sleeping Beauty, Niamh from Tír na Og, and princess. Then I moved to England when I was 16, and because I've got red hair and I look Irish, they wanted to cast me as the cleaning lady the whole time. And then I moved, somewhere else, and then I did Irish theatre again. And it's just like your type changes depending on who's looking at you, but it doesn't change your type. So you just have to be you and own your space.
This is a question that kind of has a similar theme from Harry. Thank you, Harry. Have you ever cast an actor against type, someone who doesn't fit the conventional mold? And what was the decision-making process behind that potential risk?
I don't know how to answer. I think I've often cast people against type, but for example, in Spain, who I think is good looking, like with Pep Adamangol, who I work with, we're always arguing about who's good looking and who's not. Because the women he thinks are good looking, I think are boring, and the women that I think are good looking, he thinks are strange or freaky, and the same with men. So, like, I'm always casting against the type, but as a casting director, I'm putting forward the people that the director wants. So it's not about casting against type or not type. So it's a complicated one because we're casting the roles, and because I don't believe in types, everybody is just a puzzle that fits, a piece in a puzzle that fits into that puzzle. So I think it's just about creating full, amazing universes that make beautiful puzzles.
Excellent. So we are nearing the end of our Q&A. We have about 5 minutes to go, so 2 more questions. From Max, does my social media presence significantly impact how casting directors perceive me as a performer?
This is another great question about generalization. It just depends on, some casting directors don't look at social media at all. Some do. The same with some directors. My advice on social media is that it's worth owning. It's a bit like your type. Find your space in social media and own it. And of course, if you're following, I'm very active on social media. You can all follow me. It's Luci_Lenox. I'm also very active with the Actors Home, and we also have a social media because we're trying to beat the algorithm and highlight actors. Social media is a tool that you can use to make people think about you in a certain way. So if you have the time and want to use it for that, and then it will make people think about you in a certain way. Don't lie. I mean, in this world, there's no point over exaggerating anything, but it is, social media is no longer, it shouldn't even be called social media anymore. It's more like tell the world who you are media. I don't even know what is. I don't think it's particularly a positive thing, but it is something that can influence the way people think about you. So you can choose to use it. If you choose not to use it, I would still recommend owning your space. So just have your headshot there and say, Luci Lenox doesn't do social media. Check her out on IMDb and have the link to your agent's page or to your IMDb page. You don't have to play the game. You don't have to be an influencer. I often find it really weird. There's some people who put pictures of themselves up in their underwear every day and they're saying, I'm trying to get in touch with casting directors. I'm like, most casting directors are middle-aged ladies like me, and we don't really want to see girls in their underwear every day. And then so that's not really communicating it, but then they get lots of followers. So, it's a different thing, but choose the world that you want to live in, going back to your type. And also, if you want to be in serious, independent, gritty European drama, then normally those directors aren't on social media, so it doesn't matter. But it's just thinking about, that's where I would say, think about who you want to be. Where do you want to be in a year? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And then tailor your social media towards that.
Okay, just a few minutes to go. Very last question from Yona or Jona, apologies. What was your funnest moment in a casting situation? A little bit of levity to end things.
There's so many fun moments in casting. I mean, I can't think of, I suppose I can think of fun moments, not fun. There's strange moments. There was when I was casting for zombies and one of the actors went completely mad and tried to strangle me. It wasn't fun at the time, but it makes me laugh at the end. The director who was with me had to grab him and drag him off the, he got very method on the zombie. So that was quite complicated.
As you do.
Or as you do. Or I think it's more magical moments when you just see that it's working and the director is doing something and they love the job. Or a moment that I really thought was really fun. I was casting for very small Afro-European boys to be in a Dutch film. And the little boy just said to his presentation, said, can you say your name, your height and everything? And he just went, hello, my name is, and I'm new. And I was just like this big smile. And I always remember him going with that enthusiasm, I'm new, like I've never done this before. And just with that great sense of love for the profession. So I think there are lots of fun moments. And that's it. So we're nearly out of time. So just thank you everybody for coming. If you're, check out like the Actors Home. We do these Q&As every month, as anybody who's a member does that. So it's just a good place to ask questions. Everybody ask questions though, because I think in our world, the more questions we ask, the more information we get, and the more information we get, the safer we feel. Don't think that you have to know everything in this industry. This industry is really weird. There's lots of things that are not logical. And so if you don't know something or you have a doubt, just ask. And don't ever, just always keep the idea that there's no such thing as a stupid question. If somebody doesn't answer, so if you don't understand what the self-tape is about, ask about it. If you don't know how something's meant to work or whatever, just ask. There are no stupid questions. And if somebody treats you like there's a stupid question, just think they're stupid, not you.
Words to live by.
And thank you for all your very, 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 very good questions, Sophia, because they were all very, very good.
Well, I can only give that back to the participants. Thank you for sending us over 700 questions. Thank you for making it so difficult to choose the few questions that we did have time for. And generally, thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Thank you very much. And take care then. Bye, everybody.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone. Bye, Sophia.